Hello students, this is your arranging project 2 video tutorial, and we'll just go through at least part way through all the sections to help you to understand what's going on. This is based off of the material discussed mostly in our Thursday night session, but also some of the stuff we talked about on Tuesday will be a part of this as well, and we'll finish it off looking at the last section and opening up a logic file and discussing session horns a little bit. Okay, so we start with a two-part harmonization here. Remember that we talked about target notes and approach notes. Target notes should be harmonized a third or sixth below on a chord tone. So we look, a third below, we'll zoom in a little bit here. A third below F sharp would be D. Let me get some sound in here. Oh, that thing. Yeah. It's because of this. Okay, I'm gonna close that. Doesn't quite do it. I did. Okay. Alright, moving on. A third below F sharp is D, a member of the D chord, clearly. So that will work. We'll move ahead. No, this is going well so far. Okay. Move ahead to the next target note. It's good to have our target note harmonized before we work on any approach notes like this G here. So that is a target note. Let's see if we can continue using a third. Well, a third beneath that would be an F sharp within the key. Generally, we go with the diatonic option unless there's a non-diatonic chord. So we have those two notes harmonized. So now the approach note should be harmonized with the same interval as the upcoming target note. So the target note's harmonized at a third, so we'll do the same thing with this note. So a third beneath G would be E. And let's just look ahead for something. Well, here, I'll finish the bar out and see a third beneath D is B, but B is not a member of the D triad, so let's bring that down to a sixth. See, that'll sound like. Dun, dun, dun. In this bar, for instance, a third beneath F is, or F sharp in the key is D, but B7 contains D sharp. So we would need to make that a D sharp there. So same thing. That could be harmonized with a D sharp or an A actually, which is a sixth beneath and a chord tone. And this note, for instance, third beneath G would be an E, not a member of the G minor triad. But sixth beneath would be B, but you would need to make that a B flat. And the rest is pretty self-explanatory, and your version of the assignment should be pretty similar to that. So in section B, you'll be fleshing out a pre-written horn line. You'll kind of just be orchestrating that into the other parts. So all the instruments will have the same rhythms and a lot of the same pitch classes as the trumpet 1 part, but you'll be following these prompts to decide how to flesh out the rest of the parts. So we've got 2 trumpets, tenor saxophone, and trombone. And by the way, this is not a transposing score, so you'll write in concert pitch. We'll be talking about transposition next week. So this says double 1 octave below. So we need to see all the instruments playing, but basically in 2 octaves, the original octave and an octave beneath. So the best way to do that is to, the most typical way to do it is to have the trumpets in unison and then the other 2, since they're lower pitched instruments, below that. Tenor sax down there, trombone in the same range. Looks high, but it's fine for trombone, and it's the same notes as the tenor sax. And then in the next part, it says double 2 octaves below. So in this part, we want to have the original octave plus another octave beneath it, and a further octave beneath that. All of this material represented. Oops. So since it's so high right here, and there's not really one right way to do it, but since this is pretty high, I'm not going to have the trumpets in unison. Could get a little messy. So I'll have the trumpet 2 down there, and then I'll probably have tenor sax in the same range, and then the trombone an octave beneath that. And so we get 3 simultaneous octaves: D flat 6, D flat 5, D flat 4. And where it says to do drop voicings, we'll complete this section similarly to the way we would have done that similar drop voicing section in Project 1, except we need to voice out the different notes into the appropriate instruments. So this is an A half diminished chord. So that's 4 notes. It's a 7th chord. And we have 4 instruments. So we'll just voice out the rest of the chord. That would be... Oh, and I just realized that you don't have this file, but this is in the wrong key. We need to have, let's see, in G minor. Okay. So that's an A half diminished chord. Same thing here. Drop 2. So we can take the second voice, lower an octave, and those notes can be placed in the lowest brass. And these as well into, actually I meant to, if I press Command X, that'll remove it from that bar so I can paste into another. And like so. And then we are asked to do a drop 3 chord on a D7 sharp 9. So if you remember, here I'll spell one out here. D sharp 9 would be D, F sharp, A, C is the 7th, and then the 9 would be E sharp or F natural would be the flat 10, which is what we have here. So if I were to eliminate the root from that, we have the 4 notes, and we already have the sharp 9 on top, so we can spell this out exactly as you see it here. C, A, and then F sharp. Make sure we make that an F sharp. And, okay, that's not going to be there. And then a drop 3, we take the 3rd note from the top, lower an octave. All right, and that would go into, and so on and so forth. That note to that there. And then for the G minor triad, only 3 notes, but we need 4 notes for the 4 different instruments. So we'd spell out the rest of the triad, and then just keep going down the triad, and so we end up doubling the top note. And then we would perform another drop 3, and then place that into the correct spot there on these instruments. Okay, moving on. In the last section, it says to create a background line in the trumpet 1 part and use doubling in the other horns and voice chords hits out to coincide with rhythmic notation rhythm part. Create close position voicings from top note and use drop voicings to keep parts and instrument ranges if necessary. So what this is saying to do is to create some type of counter melody line. And it would make sense if it does sort of what we talked about in the last class, in that it will be less active while the melody is more active and have that inverse relationship with the melody of activity versus more static things happening or rests. It doesn't have to sound the entire time. And so you create that part here, and then not too different from what we did over here, you'll flesh it out using doubling. Could be unison doubling or octave doubling. And then it says to voice out chords within the rhythms. Whenever the rhythm section has the rhythmic notation. So that would be, this is rhythmic notation, what you're looking at here. So that's da, da, da. That means the rhythm players are playing a D9 chord with that rhythm. And we'll have the brass play along with that, playing a voicing of the D9 chord. Same thing over here. And we've got some repetition of the melody and the chords, so you don't have to have unique material in every bar. You can use some stuff over. The bars 1 through 3 might be exactly the same as bars 5, 6, and 7. And this is accompanied by a logic session, not unlike the last project. And I've created a track to go along with this, even though this is not the file you're working with, but just wanted to have this for use in this video tutorial. But if I can open it real quick, and guess what? That'll make a funny sound if I don't turn off the volume here. Okay. So this is the backing track that will go along with this material. So you'll hear, here, let me do like this. I think that'll pretty much get her done. Okay, didn't mean to press that hotkey. I don't need my library. Okay. So, nope, this is what I want. Yay. So whatever your workflow is, you can write it out on the score and then flesh the part out. You could create a melody. You could play in a melody if you'd rather do that along with the backing track, and then place that into the trumpet 1 part. And then you're working with session horns, so you really only need to use the 1 track with session horns. And it's best to just voice out. Just have the trumpet 1 part, and then you can go in and edit the MIDI so that you add whatever octaves or harmonization you need, and just keep that all in session horns. And it should already be set up in the session as a performance style instrument in the full section using Smart Voice Split. That means when you have a chord of any kind, it will separate the notes into the appropriate instrument. You'll have 2 trumpets on top, followed by a tenor saxophone and trombone on the bottom. So let's see. So I can play. Why don't I just play along here? And I'll say, well, how about in the first bar, it'll be material that is basic, could be half notes, a few quarter notes, and then maybe some more rhythmically active material in bar 2. So let me see. I'll play something in that sounds like that. Let me bring down this and bring that out so you can focus on that. So I'll just work on that 1 part of it for now. So that was, I could look at the score if I wanted to get a little, and it doesn't quite do exactly doesn't represent it quite how I'm conceptualizing it, but it's similar. 1, so that's, I'll leave out the little, I'll leave out that part and just make it on the big beats. And then here we have so that's, oh, that's a, okay. And then in this bar, I played along with this rhythm here, and I used the 9 of a D9 chord. Dun, dun, dun. There. So to make this work in all 4 parts, I'll just go ahead and have the trumpet 2 in unison with trumpet 1, and then I'll voice the other instruments an octave beneath. And here I'll create a D9 voicing, which I already have the 9, so I can just go down in thirds. And that's a D9 without the D. F sharp, A, C, E. I'll do some type of, like here, look, trombone's already on an A, so what if I do a drop 3 voicing so that the A stays down there, and then that way the trombone's in a comfortable range. And there. Now, I also need to represent this in the logic session. So what I'll do is, up until the voiced out chord, I started to play the chord and then I just went for the 1 note. So all this material just needs to be doubled an octave beneath. So first note's D4, so I'll take it down to a D3. And double that an octave beneath. So that was. And then I did a drop 3, so that's the third voice. What is it? Wait. I think it's. Yes, okay. So let's listen to that. And I believe you have a requirement to use some type of articulation. Some of the things you can do with session horns, if I, for instance, hold the mod wheel down and play a note, so you can record a mod wheel movement if you need to. If I hold it up and press a note. But the way the other articulations are used in the instrument is if you have it in the velocity switch mode, if you're in session horns performance, what that means is it doesn't work like the contact instruments that use key switches. It uses velocity switches. So if you use a high velocity, you'll trigger whatever articulation is present here. So a nice sounding one would be grace note. I could do that might be a good place to do that. So I'm going to make those high velocity notes so it triggers that articulation. And you can hear that it actually affected that note too, so I might bring that one down. And for the record, it looks like it triggers it at about 117. You know, if I don't like that, I could try forte, piano, crescendo sounds nice. If you use it timed, that means it'll last for about a bar. And what that does is they'll hit a note hard, back off, and then crescendo. And it sounds good on long notes, so maybe I'll use it on the last note. Okay, so let's see how that sounds. And I'm going to take it off that note. somehow it ended up on 116. That's not what I want. Make it 118. And you know what? I didn't like the way that sounded. Actually, we'll see. Maybe it'll go a little faster if it's not timed, because this tempo is a little bit slow. So I took it off Fopi Cray time onto just regular. That worked better. Anyway, that about does it. And there would be a similar material. I could copy and paste that into bars 5, 6, 7, and 8 really, if I wanted, and just create a whole note. I think that's required on the 9th bar. All right, well, hopefully that gets you going, and let me know if you got any more questions. I may or may not be able to get to them over the weekend, but if there's something really keeping you from succeeding on it, maybe we can look at it and discuss it next week. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.